Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech, protected.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Voices of Monadnock. My name is Anina Hansen. I work for Monadnock Family Services, spearheading the Trauma-Informed Community Program. And one of the things we're doing here, which is not about trauma at all, is just talking about the Monadnock region and what makes people love living here. So our guest today is Sarah DeSaulnier,
Yes.
and you are not a Monadnock native.
I
So
am not.
Tell us how you ended up here.
Yeah, so originally born in Hooksett on the south end. So
You're a New Hampshire native at least, you know,
Yes,
it's a step
born
in the
and
right
raised.
direction.
Yeah, actually the only move that I've ever made in my entire life was to come from Hooksett to the Monadnock region. So
Okay.
only ever moved once, still very new to that.
And the town you landed in is?
New Ipswich.
I know, you and like 14
Yes.
other people, huh?
Oh,
So-
literally. If I were to have children, that would exponentially increase the population of New Ipswich. But yeah, I originally moved down because my partner lives down here, and he lived down here before we even started talking, and so I got really lucky with this housing market. Didn't have to look for apartments or anything, was just able to move right in with my current partner, and we're
Nice.
loving it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. And he is a,
Police officer.
Yeah.
He is a wonderful, wonderful man.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
He's
really
doing
cool.
good too. He graduated the police academy in June or July this past summer. So still very new on the job,
Right.
but we love him.
A rookie in Ringe, yeah?
Yes, indeed in Ringe.
Cool. Love to
Yeah.
get that corner of Monadnock represented on here.
Oh my gosh, yeah. It's a really interesting town, but just based on what I've seen from him and what he's told me. Not quite what you would expect. Like
I can only imagine the stories that a cop is bringing home. There's going to be a lot of not quite what you would expect.
Exactly right. I mean, it is kind of the only town in the region aside from Keene and maybe Peterborough that actually has a grocery store and a Walmart and a Domino's, couple
Because they're
pizza
not
shops.
for New Hampshire residents. They're for people to come up from Mass.
Exactly
but
right.
we benefit.
And for the college students, Franklin
true,
Pierce.
too. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, cool. So tell me a little bit about your experience living here. What has been your favorite thing about coming to this part of the state?
If I'm being honest, hiking is in my backyard.
Yeah.
Yes. I actually didn't start hiking until I was in college. I graduated from Southern New Hampshire University in 2020. And yeah, I was not a hiker before then. In high school, you couldn't have paid me to go on a hike.
Okay.
But started in college and then moved down to New Ipswich in 2021. And I practically have Monadnock in my backyard. I can leave my driveway, go left or right for 5 minutes. I have Pratt Mountain, I have Kidder Mountain, I have Pack Monadnock, I have Gap Mountain. I mean, the hiking is really kind of been my favorite part here.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And why do you think? What is it? If you weren't a hiker, what made the switch for you?
Not to get sappy on you.
That's okay. I'm here for the sappy.
Yeah, that's okay. Anywhere is home with Jacob. You know, so
Okay.
I would make any place in this world home with him. Granted, I'm not a city person. I don't think I would want to live in a place like New York City, but if he were there, I would make it work. But I love, love, love the small town feel. I mean, I'm secluded. I do have, and I know this is really big for New Ipswich, but I do have like a post office 5 minutes away. I have a little market 5 minutes away. We actually have two of them in town. And I just loving it.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a very small, tight-knit community too. Like
That
if your
is.
car breaks down, someone's gonna stop for you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's one of the great things about small towns.
it really is, and that has happened to me twice in this region, where my car broke down, and people did indeed stop. So tried and true, the Monadnock
Yeah.
region is here for you.
Yeah, it
Yes.
really is true, right? I grew up in Dublin, you know, that small town feel. There is just something about
Totally.
it. I've had people stop to help me. I've been the person to stop and help because it's
Right.
like, well, yeah, you have to.
Yeah, and growing up in Hooksett, being so close to Manchester, my parents, and this is totally out of worry and care, and so as an adult now, I can realize why they said this, but at the time it seemed devoid of all human emotion. They would always tell me, if someone's broken down on the side of the road, don't stop. Because if you stop, they're gonna see a young woman alone and like something bad is gonna happen to you. It's probably a trap. And so
Wow.
down here where everybody will stop,
Yeah.
it's refreshing and it's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it feels very safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a nice thing about this area. Now, I want to go back to the hiking thing.
Yes, please do. I could talk for years.
I'm intrigued that in college, like, was there a thing that happened that suddenly got you interested? Because you're passionate about hiking.
Very.
But just in the last few years, so what flipped that switch?
Would you like the long version or the short version?
Oh, gosh, I don't know.
Because we can get into trauma a little bit.
Oh, well,
here.
you know I'm here for trauma. So
Yes.
it's sort of my job now. So if trauma is part of the hiking, I cannot think of a more perfect topic.
Awesome.
Go
so if at any point you want to like interject or stop me or clarify or anything, let me know. I'll give you the long version, but I'll clip out some little pieces so we're not here for hours.
long version.
The short long version. The long and the short of it is I'll start at 7th grade. And even before that, I was always a very anxious kid. I stopped eating lunch in school in the 2nd grade because I am a very severe emetophobe, which means I have an intense and very irrational fear of vomiting. And so my thought process was, if nothing's in my stomach, I can't vomit. And then there was also a lot of body image issues that contributed to that and kind of kept me going. And that lasted through high school. Even in college, I think the reason why I started eating lunch again was because I was living at home. I didn't live on campus at college when I was in college. But so that was that. And in 7th grade, I believe it was about 2 weeks before 7th grade started, I went to softball tryouts. Used to play softball, loved it, missed that sport very dearly, if I might add. And I got sick at the tryouts. And when I say got sick, that's my way of using a word that's not vomiting. Just because it really does. I've made leaps and strides with my anxiety, but it really does just feel so yucky for me to even say. And that's when I had my first panic attack. And so my mom is bringing me home. She's telling me, you just have a virus. It'll be okay. Meanwhile, like, I can't move my hands. They get kind of locked in this position. If I'm having a really bad panic attack, my eyes twitch, my lips twitch. It feels like there's like a truck driving over my chest. It's overall a very unpleasant physical and mental experience. And the thing is, as soon as we got home, it was probably a 30-minute drive. As soon as we got home, I felt totally fine. Like nothing had ever happened. A week or two later, there are the 2nd round of tryouts. I get in the car, same thing starts happening. My hands start to lock up, all the twitchiness is happening, racing thoughts, that kind of thing. I make my mom turn the car around and go home. Didn't go to the 2nd tryouts. I will add, as a quick aside, I made the team. After that one tryout, I made the team. So don't underestimate me here. But I did make the team, but that happened on and off for the following weeks. My brother and I would be remiss to not mention that my family is also a classic Cars family. My brother, he had a Nova at the time, and he still has this Nova. It's lovely.
What year is the Nova?
Whew, he's going to hate me for not knowing this off the top of my head. I want to say it's a 69, but I know my dad's Nova is a 69, and my dad has a 71 Chevelle as well. So I think that my brother's is a 69. Michael, if you're listening to this, please don't hate me. But we went to Kohl's in Hooksett. I think he needed to go there to get a shirt for probably a school dance or something. I have no idea. But we took the Nova there, and that's something that him and I did together frequently. And we get there, everything's great. We park, can't get out of the car. Same thing's happening. And I just kept having these episodes. It was almost every time I left the house where wherever we got to where we were going, I couldn't get out. And this then translated to school. My mom would bring me to school, and it's like I couldn't move. And so I went through the myriad of testing that a lot of people who experience anxiety disorders go through. The blood tests, any sort of scans to make sure that you're not deficient in anything. And I wasn't, aside from vitamin D, which is very characteristic of somebody who lives in New England. So I got that sorted out. And that's when I found myself in the office of a behavioral health specialist. And again, this is like a canon event for anybody who experiences mental illness. When you're sitting in that room and they give you a clipboard with a piece of paper on it and you have to fill out how many days a week do you feel helpless? Do you feel worthless? Do you experience any of these things that's on this list that are wildly unpleasant? You hand the paper back. They tell the person that you're going to go talk to about everything that you listed on the paper, and then you go meet with them. And it feels very sterile at first, but it's kind of the intake process that they go through. And they said, wow, you are incredibly anxious. So I was diagnosed with a couple different anxiety disorders, the primary two being panic disorder and emetophobia, which is that intense and irrational fear of vomiting. because that's what triggered a lot of my stuff. But the panic disorder came in where I was just leaving the house. I didn't even have to feel sick. I was just being anxious and having these panic attacks. And that experience going to the behavioral health specialist was really kind of a turning point for me because I finally got help. And I did really well in counseling. My counselor's name was Melissa. She was lovely. I really, really enjoyed my time with her. She ended up moving. And so she was like, well, you're doing well enough. So I think you're good. I'm not going to refer you to another counselor. You're good.
Famous last words, huh?
Truly famous last words. And I hold nothing against Melissa or any counselor to this day. But I don't think that it was the right choice. And again, that's neither here nor there. She made the best choice that she could given the information that she had. So I stopped that, finished off 8th grade, got into freshman year of high school, went to high school in Manchester, and we went on February break, came back, couldn't sit through class again. My mom would drive me to the front of the school to drop me off, couldn't get out of the car. I would start crying. And this is pre-COVID times where where my mom was still working in her office. So after she dropped me off, she had to go to work. And when I couldn't get out of the car, she had to bring me home. And that took time out of her workday. My understanding is that her coworkers and her bosses and colleagues were very understanding, just saying, just take care of Sarah, and it's fine, that's all we can ask.
Sorry, my brain is skipping ahead here because I'm trying to see, like, putting in my own interpretation of how hiking helped this, because I'm guessing you've got this long history of anxiety, and then the hiking is something that addresses that for you?
A little bit, yes, but it honestly started after I got medicated. After that February break when we came back, it was, hey, I need something, because at this point I wasn't functioning. Like, my day-to-day activities were not being completed. So they put me on medication, and I've been medicated for 10 years now, which I'm very, again, proud to say. God bless medication, my Lanta. But yeah, I went through the rest of high school, still had panic attacks here and there, but really was progressing. Got to college, finished my entire college career, 2016 to 2020. Not a single time did I have to leave class for a panic attack.
Nice.
Not once. And so during that time, it was really, it built my confidence a lot to be able to sit through class and do things, and independently, might I add. You know, I didn't necessarily have a whole ton of friends on campus because I didn't live on campus. So I went to class alone. I drove alone. I did my homework alone. Why wasn't I hiking alone? And hiking really was more a product of that confidence being built. I always loved being outside. My family goes four-wheeling every year, and we still do that. But I needed a little bit more. And my mom taught me, to her detriment, I think, to not wait for people. If you want to do something, then go do it. And so I stopped waiting for people, and I went and did it, and did it. And I hike solo most of the time now, which my mom does not enjoy, but I thoroughly enjoy. And so through that came the extra healing. You know, not only was I just surviving now and getting my daily tasks done, I actually had something extra. And then I started to thrive. And I would say at this point in my life, I'm thriving.
That's so great. Yeah. And, you know, for the purposes of the podcast, I love, like, the little propaganda of, like, the Monadnock region literally heals you.
It does, though. Monadnock was my first hike ever in the dead of winter. That's where I went. Was Mount Monadnock.
Brave. I've never hiked it in the winter, and I never will.
I was going to say you can. I'm actually doing it this December if you would like to join.
Thank you. I would not.
That's okay. But it really does. And I mean, with the quietness that the Monadnock region offers, I mean, you can go to Monadnock and the parking lot can be full, and you can still experience solitude if you want solitude.
Yeah. Well, that's very cool. I love that. And I agree. I spend a lot of time outdoors. I'm not into hiking. I just walk.
It's not for everyone.
But to be outside and just, you know, walk on flat land every
flat
day
is very nice.
That's what works for me.
Very underrated.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for understanding.
Of course.
But for my mental health, that's been huge.
Yeah.
Something, being outside, being under the trees, being under the big sky, being alongside a body of water, and being alone for me, it's just, it's my medicine.
It's top tier.
One of my medicines, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right along my Trazodone and Celexa, I have my hiking.
Yeah.
And I have my Monadnock region.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I love it because I appreciate you sharing the story of, anxiety through your developmental years, because it's a more common experience than it's still too stigmatized and people don't want to let on. But this happens a lot. And I like how that adversity that you experienced in your childhood, first of all, you got support, which is...
I'm really lucky.
Yes.
That's not a universal
fortunate.
experience.
Yeah, and you were able to find interventions that made life workable for you. But you stepped in and became who you who discovered yourself able to become through this, and ended up working in behavioral health too, which is what I love.
Yes. And on the same topic as discovering yourself, I had no idea who I was until I'm 26 at the time we're filming this, and I don't think I knew who I was or had an idea who I was till I was probably like 22.
Also much more common, especially nowadays, but not really talked about.
Yeah, and I'm still working on it.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm 46 and I think I'm still working on it
and
too.
That's so okay. That's okay. We're on this together.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the work that you do, because again, you're out in the southeastern Monadnock region, which is underserved as far as substance use needs go, but you are in there with an organization, Reality Check, that is doing some work there. So tell me about what you are doing to make life better for other people with issues around your area here.
Awesome. Yeah, so I'm the Director of Prevention Services at Reality Check, and so I oversee everything prevention related. I have the distinct pleasure of going into 3 separate school districts that we serve.
Which are?
We have the Messinic Regional School District, the Jaffrey Rinn School District, and I can never say it correctly, the Conval School District, which is, I believe, Kentucket Valley, if I'm saying that correctly.
Works for me.
But the Conval School District as well. And so we work anywhere from elementary school, middle school, through high school. And I get to go in. We play Jeopardy sometimes as far as making healthy decisions go, if that's what's appropriate for the age group, all the way to talking about how substances can impact your mental health and how mental health can impact your substance use.
Right.
It's really important to talk about that transverse kind of effect there. But it's so much fun.
Well, and it's just such a beautiful full circle for you.
It really is.
To be able to go right back to kids around your age and give the help that you would have liked to have probably at that point too. And prevention.
It's a win-win-win.
Right.
It really is. And I love doing it. And if I can talk to a 7th grader that potentially had a similar experience that I did, where they just had their first panic attack and they don't know what to make of it, maybe I can make a safe space for them. Maybe that classroom, they feel heard that day. Maybe that's the one class period that they don't leave that day. And that's all I can hope.
I love you using the word safe. Actually, we talked about pulling over in the Monadnock region, breaking down, and people pull over and help you. And it's basically, it's considered safe. Yeah. And now we're talking about school safe. I mean, that's something that is so crucial in the development of a child, to feel like they're safe. Increasingly in the world, it doesn't feel very safe. And, now we're dealing with, and I'm not slamming social media in any way, but it's an unknown quantity, as far as the long-term impacts of children growing up with this kind of exposure. And we know enough to know there's a huge impact on mental health, potentially. Right. And which does not make a person feel safe. And so for that work, also as somebody who's experienced anxiety, that sensation of being safe is still my holy grail.
It's foreign for a while until you get used to it. It feels so foreign.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of social media, to be the perpetual optimist that I am.
Excellent.
If I didn't have technology, my phone, social media, I probably wouldn't have experienced some of the bad things that I experienced. However, I probably wouldn't have felt nearly as connected.
Yes.
So I will say being able to text my mom so I didn't have to leave in the middle of lunch. That I hesitate to say that it saved me, but I think that it played a role in making me feel safe, at least in the moment, because I knew I was connected to my safe people.
Yeah. I think that's really, it needs to be part of the conversation, not just, everybody slam social media.
Yeah.
Because I relate to that also. When I was living out of the country, WhatsApp came along.
Yes.
And, it was hard to text between, New Hampshire and Africa a lot of the time. But with WhatsApp, I could stay in touch with my family. And just that feeling of connection, what it did for me to know they're just this click of a button away.
Right.
It was huge for me.
Yeah.
It was such a benefit in my life. And
Good.
I don't mind being glued to my phone because, having it with me all the time, I want to monitor how I use it and be prudent with it. But just that benefit of if I'm in distress, I know I can reach out to another human. That's quite a recent development and quite a luxury. If I'm in distress when I'm driving in the car, I can reach out and make a phone call to another human. Yeah, I don't have to wait till I get somewhere.
Right. When I mention to my friends who still live up in like the Hooksett, Manchester area about where I live, and they come down and they see me and they see the area, usually they have two main points that they like to talk about. One, it's beautiful. Two, there's nothing here. And I would like to challenge that, and I challenge it every single time. But
what do you say to them?
I say I have everything I need. As an anxious person, I oftentimes, even when I go on vacation, I'll look up to see where I am in proximity to like the closest hospital. And I know that Monadnock Community Hospital is the closest one to me, and it's like 15, 20 minutes out. And a lot less than that if you're either on a motorcycle, you have an escort, or you're in an ambulance.
Right.
So, I have everything I need. I have my grocery stores. I have my partner. I have my community. I have my work. What else do you need? I feel like life has been simplified for me in a way.
Yes.
And I can't be more thankful for that.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is something I appreciate. Like,
Yeah.
I live in Peterborough. I work in Keene. Not every day, but there's still a decent amount that half-hour drive back and forth. I grew up in Dublin. It was a 20-minute drive to Keene at that time, to the big city, And a lot of people are just, it's so far. Everything's so spread out.
No.
And I'm like, yeah, it's fantastic.
It's great. It's wonderful.
Yeah,
And
I
guess
really
what?
appreciate it.
If I want ice cream at midnight, maybe I'll think twice. Because we don't have we don't have the luxury of DoorDash and 24-hour open things, which when I'm in the mood for ice cream at midnight, I will say is definitely a con, but I think it's a huge pro. It behooves me to be more mindful about what I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know what? And if I want ice cream when I leave here today, I'm gonna go get ice cream.
Right.
And it's gonna be just fine.
Right.
I'm still gonna have access to the milk and cookies Ben & Jerry's that I want.
There you go. Well, and it comes back again to that thing of simplified.
Yes.
Where not everybody values that. Not everybody looks at that as a plus. I think the Monadnock region kind of organically attracts people who are like, yes, simplicity.
Great.
Yeah. But we also know, and this comes back to that trauma piece and the safety piece, that the nervous system being constantly stimulated by gotta do this, gotta do that, all the stuff that's going on in our modern culture is very stressful, and we stay in this constant state of that fight or flight, and there's adrenaline pumping and cortisol and just all that. And what a huge toll it takes on the body over time. And so there's a lot of science that says living in the Monadnock region really is healthy for you. I mean, obviously, everybody creates their own life, and you can create a really frenetic and packed life in the Monadnock region if it's what you want.
Yep.
But if it's not what you want, this area lends itself to, hey, I can just take a breath.
It totally does. And if I may mention, the business that I own, the business I am the founder and director of, it's Summit Workplace Solutions. My primary focus there, at least as of right now, still very early on in the process, has been wellness and burnout. And my big point when I'm talking about burnout is simplify.
Yeah.
If you want to recover and restore and prevent burnout in the future, simplification is essential.
Yeah.
And there's no better place to do it than the Monadnock region, or in the North Country, I may argue. The North Country is, they've got some simplification going on up there also.
But you have to drive farther to get to a hospital if you're up there.
Exactly, and I just think that I'm in really this whirlwind of perfect scenarios.
Gosh, what a great way to live.
What a wonderful way to live. I really could not be happier. I would say that Hooksett considers itself a town, and I would agree that Hooksett's a town. Or I would have agreed that Hooksett was a town before I moved down here. Now I think that New Ipswich is a town.
Right.
And my gosh, I come to Keene and I'm like, wow, is this Boston? Like, there's just so much going on. There's so much people.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, we recalibrate to a different pace and to a different amount of stimulus and input in our environment. How many people do we interact with on a daily basis?
Right.
You know, is there traffic noise in my environment or not? Those things, we get a different baseline.
I'd be interested too to see, statistically speaking, the distribution of introverts versus extroverts in the state of New Hampshire. Because I am willing to argue and willing to put money on the fact that more introverts probably live in the Monadnock region and the North Country than anywhere else in the state.
Well, you know,
surely more than Manchester or Concord.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
It would follow. I don't know if there's a way to quantify that or not, but
if there is, I'll come back and I will report.
There you go, for a follow-up episode.
Yes, part 2.
Awesome. This has been so great. I love to hear your perspective of, you know, a New Hampshire resident, but not a Monadnock resident who became a Monadnock resident, and just the benefits of being here, because we do love this area. And the way also that you've made it work for you as a literal home to your wellness.
It really is.
Yeah.
Truly.
That's
this
very
has been
cool.
a pleasure. I really enjoyed coming on here, and it's always nice to see you. You know that.
Yeah. Thanks for being here today.
Of course.
All right.